I'm Sarah Nagle. I've spent my career leading research and product development within some of the world's largest brands.
And I'm Chad Reynolds. I'm a serial entrepreneur and founder and CEO of Vurvey.
And this is AI Powered by People.
Each episode will dive into the latest AI developments and talk to an industry leader to help you better understand and utilize AI.
We'll take you inside some of the world's most famous companies and share examples of how AI is improving innovation, consumer engagement, media, and marketing.
No matter what industry you work in, we'll help you navigate one of the biggest disruptions to organizations and people today.
Hey, Chad, how's it going?
Hey, Sarah. I'm doing good. I'm recovering from the red-eye flight back, but I've got a gigantic coffee. So
Oh, good. I'm glad.
just what you
feeling
wanted.
ready.
Yeah, feeling ready.
Awesome. So coming up, we're going to be sharing an interview with Ovetta Sampson, who is the director of UX and machine learning at Google. She's an AI and machine learning expert with a focus on human-centered design. Before our interview with Ovetta, let's learn a bit more about what happened at Google Next. It sounded like generative AI was a dominant theme, and Google rolled out new chips, software updates, AI workloads, updates to LLMs, and a lot about assistants. Chad, you were on stage also announcing Vurvey's biggest update, vTeam, on the startup stage. Tell us more about that and about what you saw while you're in Vegas.
Yeah, so it was a huge week for Vurvey. Congrats, Sarah.
Congratulations, Chad.
Yeah, no, it was an amazing week for the entire team and what we were launching. So, vTeam is our most ambitious launch to date, and what it signals is the creation of different AI agents that allow you to amplify your creativity and your creative process, but use AI throughout the entire workflow or throughout the process. So you can design different agents. We had a chance to demo for everybody on the startup stage. So it was just full of other entrepreneurs, VC firms. So it was exciting to share that with the world. And it also felt, kind of like the right time with what's happening within the world of AI. AI was in every single session that was playing out. It was a part of every single booth that was out on the expo floor. And what was really unique is that we were the only ones who were actually talking about kind of the human in this whole experience. So it was exciting to see kind of the landscape of what's happening, but also to see how we fit uniquely in that space. I know you and I have talked about this a lot, and I love that Ovetta's part of this episode because we dig into that.
Yeah, we talk about, where the human is part of it, using human-centered design thinking, which will be really great to talk about. One of the things I was curious about, because I think, we, the folks that weren't in Vegas and weren't at Google Next, it feels like AI is coming fast. There's a lot happening. We're hearing about it all the time. Can you talk about just being, amongst all of these folks that are focused on AI and kind of what does the pace feel like?
I'd say it's an exhausting pace, but also extremely exciting. So, as a part of different sessions where you had, founder of Anthropic, with Claude 3 we use, as one of our LLMs, co-founder Runway, which we use as well to generate videos. I think everything's moving at such a fast pace that you just see a different kind of atmosphere in some of these talks. For attending many conferences over the years, you kind of sit in an audience and kind of sit back. I think with a lot of the things that are happening, everybody's leaning forward, asking questions, taking notes. There's just a lot of activity that's happening kind of in between sessions, and everybody's just innovating in a really rapid pace, launching things as fast as they can. And I think it's really exciting. It's a really exciting space. It's something that, I don't think it's been probably 10 years since we've had this kind of activity, almost back with cloud and different kinds of things. So it's changing behaviors across the board. But being part of this experience felt different than last year's Google Next, where, not many companies had things in production. We were one of them. And, that's kind of how we ended up on stage is showcasing what was not just possible, but literally what we were launching. So this was interesting. So you had more people creating different POCs or proof of concepts. Some of them were pushed into production and kind of live experiences people could play with. But you definitely had a lot more examples of how AI could impact medicine, mental health, obviously the creative industries, kind of like what you can do, but also seeing how a company like Google's embedding AI into everything from Gmail and Meet through Drive and like all the products. So.
Mhm. So what would you say to, folks that are listening that are part of organizations that are still developing their AI policies, because there's still some organizations that are still cautious about
Yeah.
jumping in. What do you say to these guys after experiencing what
Yeah.
happened at Google
It's
Next?
natural, normal. It's kind of where we're at right now. I think the overall sentiment is that this is coming whether we like it or not. It's more of a collaborative, let's create policies together. Let's focus on some of the ethics and responsibilities of how this should be implemented, both at like kind of the organization level, but also at the individual level, and what kinds of experiences we might want to create to get consumers involved in these things. But I'd say the overall sentiment was one of positivity of, let's see, there's so many different things that are becoming possible because of this. And you just have to have the mindset of let's create some experiments. Let's build some policies or some kind of rules of operation around those things. Kind of test and learn and just build those feedback loops in to make sure that you're creating policy as you're delivering product. And I think that was great to see.
Mhm.
It was definitely great to see.
What are you most excited about? And why are you excited about it?
Well, I mean, I'm biased. Like I'm very excited about what we're working on. So Sarah, as you know, one of the biggest things that we did at Google Next was the launch of vTeam. So I'm going to share my screen, and for listeners, hopefully you can follow along, and I'll try to describe what's happening. But this is also available at Vurvey.com, where you can see a full demo of what vTeam is and also sign up for the waitlist. But let me like set the scene. So, as you and I work together with companies to try to build out new products and services and experiences, there's many different people that are involved in the creative process. We're doing research, design, product development. You're working with like marketing teams. You're developing stories and copy and all different kinds of things. It takes a long time to create something new, and you need to work across lots of different people. Very often in that process, feedback happens usually in the very beginning and maybe a little at the end, before you launch something. And so vTeam was a really unique opportunity for us to create AI agents that could function as assistants for you, so that you could actually build out a team of agents to help you through this process. So what you can do in vTeam is to create a new workflow. Think of a workflow as a creative process. And so, I wanted to design a new line of outdoor hiking boots. So normally I'd have to go through a bunch of different team members to kind of coordinate this. Using vTeam, I can select from different agents or assistants who are trained on these very specific tasks. So, I can give an assistant a task to go collect some market research from the internet, pull in all data sets that I've given it to really look at the addressable market, some of the pain points. I can also pick a different assistant to do a different task, and it might be to synthesize all of the Vurvey responses that we collected already from hikers on different pain points. And by queuing up each of these agents together in this workflow, they can collaborate and do different tasks all at the same time. And so what you're seeing on screen is how each of these are working together, and they're generating an end report or a deliverable that walks you through the creative process. So you can click through and go through sections like, just kind of in the discovery process of here's what consumers were talking about. Here are some of the main pain points that were emerging. Actually have videos of them talking about these specific problems. The other assistant is designing inspiration. So kind of if you imagine generating hundreds of footwear designs based off what everybody was talking about and explaining why the AI is designing these things. And then taking the 2D designs and inspiration, working with another assistant that's trained on 3D renderings, and actually turning those 2D visuals into 3D objects that you can spin around, you can share back with consumers and getting feedback on those, and do it all in this sequence that allows you to collaborate with people through this entire process. And what I just walked through took around 10 minutes to generate that whole workflow, which Sarah, you and I know, going through that, I mean, that's like months and months of a process to go do that.
Yeah. When you think about kind of the overall, product development process that could take over a year, you could imagine how this can trim that down by, helping you with the research, helping you do qualitative research, but then also the quantitative market research, doing some of the early initial concepts. But then you can also think about as a practitioner or user of this, you can think about where your team can be involved in this, where they want to give feedback, how they want to think about these ideas and use this as inspiration to create new ideas, but then go right back out to their community, get some more
Yeah.
feedback, and then
Yep.
having these agents help you along the way. So giving you the superpowers along the way to help you really speed up this really long process.
Absolutely. And we only have a certain number of hours every day to focus our time and execute and explore different ideas. And I think for me, I think just looking at this as a way to explore multiple scenarios all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I think like for us, we probably go to the internet. We're going through many different sites to find different inspiration and kind of take pieces from here and here and here as a part of that process. And you usually can only execute a few different ideas. You might be looking at weeks to do these things, and I can't. I'm not a 3D designer, and I can't visualize some of these ideas, but they're still ideas in my head, and I now have tools to allow me to visualize concepts really quickly to be able to share those with others and get feedback. And so generating hundreds and hundreds of ideas visually is super exciting because it allows you to express. An insight doesn't have to be a bullet point in a PowerPoint deck. It can be a visual idea that takes the insight and makes it into a product. And I think that's the most exciting part, is just helping us humans, helping us express insights and ideas in a way that we've never have.
Mm-hmm. Giving people the tools to visualize the things that are in their heads.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, this is super exciting. Again, head over to Vurvey.com to check out the demo, but also to join the wait list. So super exciting stuff we're going to be sharing along the way. So let's now get to our interview with Ovetta Sampson, who's the director of UX machine learning at Google. She also spent time at Capital One, Microsoft, and for those of you in the innovation world, she worked at IDEO developing human-centered machine learning. She's a professor, and you can also often find her speaking about the future of AI and human behavior. I'm super excited about this one. Are you ready?
I am. This is one of my favorites, so let's go.
Hey, Ovetta, how are you doing today? Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you for having me. Hello, Chad.
Hey, Ovetta.
We have a number of things we want to talk to you about today. But first, we'd love to hear a bit about your background. You're currently at Google. But we'd love to hear about kind of your past and some of the work that you did prior and what led you to Google and the work that you're doing now.
I came to artificial intelligence and machine learning from journalism, which is an interesting pathway. I have a communications bachelor's degree, but I have a master's degree in computer science and have always been interested in the intersectionality between people and technology and how people engage with technology, the different ways that they use technology in their lives. And so I got a computer science degree with an emphasis in human computer interaction at DePaul University. And when I graduated from grad school at 41, I got my job at IDEO, which was just around that time in 2016 experimenting with what they were trying to decide was human centered AI design. And I say it like that because it was the Wild Wild West back then, like 2015, 2016. Things like generative AI were being talked about at like MIT and like in the academia hallways, but it wasn't in industry, it wasn't in business. AI was very, machine learning was very kind of nanos, like this very emerging technology, they called it back then. And so I kind of got in on, like, I don't know if you've ever seen that show called Hawk Catch Fire, but it's like the beginning of the internet. And
Yeah.
I feel like I kind of got in at the beginning of machine learning, not so much like the beginning, which was in 1959 at Dartmouth, but like the beginning of it for industry, right? And IDEO was experimenting. They had acquired a data science firm, and I was the first design researcher to work directly with those data scientists on creating intelligent products. And we worked on everything from autonomous vehicles to intelligent scheduling to chatbots to AR, VR stuff, IoT. Like we were doing the whole spectrum of technology, trying to figure out like what does human centered machine learning actually look like? How do you create human centered product, AI powered products? What does that look like for folks who are engaging with these products? What are the principles around that? What are the ethics around that? What are the responsibilities that you have as a designer and researcher? And we were kind of like building the plane and flying it at the same time, just really kind of like every time we did a project, we would learn and kind of like, can we codify this into a practice or a framework? And I did that for almost 3 years, working with some of the brightest minds in both data science and human centered design, and wrote a couple papers about our experience. And that kind of got traction across the industry. And then I got recruited by Microsoft to work in their CEO Innovation Industry Hub in cloud and AI. And so working a lot with Azure and their technology stack products on really bringing machine learning AI to the business operation. So worked a lot with Power BI and other power applications that were using RPA and machine learning and AI, as well as facial recognition and other technology um, that Microsoft was trying to pioneer and figure out how do you get it from like deep research academic to product design offering right for a company.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got recruited by Capital One to delve into helping build their ML infrastructure so that you can scale AI and ML. And then that's how I learned about the back of the stack of ML and AI. And now I'm at Google, putting those two houses together, helping Google to build the most responsible and most useful machine learning AI models across Alphabet, and for our clients and customers like you guys, offering really great capabilities for machine learning AI to be used in practical and tactical ways in industry.
Just to unpack a couple different things, just for our audience to bring them along, can you explain what an RPA is?
Yeah, yeah. Rapid process automation. So it's like when you have a really high like volume of invoices that have to be read and calculated and accrued and put in order. You can do probably 10 maybe in 20 minutes, but using machine learning, if you train what we call the tiny little machines in your computer on how to process those invoicing, your invoice processing can go from 10 an hour to 10,000 an hour, right? Because there's this rapid automation of tasks that a machine can do when it's trained on a machine learning platform.
And then
Yeah.
just as far as your role, are you kind of more at a strategic level at Google, or are you kind of like more tactical in kind of like building
Yeah.
platforms and
So, so I lead a team. So my team is definitely tactical. They're all about doing the research and design and visualization to improve the end-to-end process of developing models and scaling those and putting those into production at Google. My job is to work with my very smart partners on what are the problems that we need to tackle at Google to accelerate this technology for everybody else. So I work both at a strategic and tactical level, like most leaders in my position do, because I'm trying to have my team go where the puck needs to go, not where it is right now. And as a UXer, that's kind of like our job to stay just a little bit ahead of our partners. And so, in that capacity, I'm at a strategic level going, all right, right now, here are the big problem areas for machine learning and scaling AI. How can we solve tomorrow's problems thinking about that today?
Vetta, as a designer, maybe a recovering designer, I
Yeah,
first got introduced to you through a Figma conference last year,
yeah,
and
yeah,
saw your
yeah.
talk and had it on like repeat. But I wonder if you could expand on, like, I loved how you summarized Gen AI as a souped up Mad Libs, um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I wonder if you could maybe expand on that a little bit for our listeners.
I love this question because we have made incredible leaps in generative AI, from machines not being able to understand our language, us always having to talk to machines in their language, meaning code, right, and syntax, and machines not giving us anything back, right, and then all of a sudden you have machines falling in love with New York Times reporters, right, supposedly, right, or telling them to leave their wives, and really seeming human, right?
Hmm.
And what I talk to people about when it comes to generative AI is I try to break it down of how we got here. It's been about 70 years, and if anybody's a Noam Chomsky fan, he has been he was like a pioneer in trying to in his effort as a anthropologist, trying to understand other like dead languages. He was trying to get machines to speak languages so that we could archive languages that were disappearing. So that was back in the 50s, right? So this process for machines to understand how we communicate in language is over 70 years old, and it took machines that long of a time. They got vision pretty quickly, right? The way that autonomous cars work with lidar and computer vision. They got audio pretty quickly. They got movement with robots. Anybody seeing Boston Dynamics dancing, those kinds of
Yeah.
things. Um, but language was always the barrier, right? That the machines could not kind of traverse very well. And there's a famous line. I think I showed it in my config talk about the green color grass, blue, something like that. And that was what the machines were turning out, because they recognized the word green, they recognized the word grass, but they didn't know that green and grass went together, right? Like they didn't have that sense of syntax on our communication. And then along comes a transformer model that was created at Google. Along comes some increased, like souped up CPUs and GPU energy, so that models could process lots and lots of more data. And then you got models at Google, and later Facebook and other places, that were now being trained on the internet, right? Like not just being trained on some data set somewhere, but the whole of like the Library of Congress of language. And so now you have processing power where a model can process large, like 18 zeros amounts of data. And then you have a transformer model that can take binary kind of vectors and turn them into language, right? And then you have sequencing models that will allow the in natural language processing allow models to turn those binary kind of vectors into grass green together, and then now you get the model that can predict. If I say the cat in the blank, now you have a model that knows that hat goes there, and it knows that hat goes there because that's a phrase that's often said together, right? And so now it can decide that what fills in that blank is hat. And so now you have a model that's been trained on all of the internet, that's been trained on all languages, that is translating those things into communication with us. And so instead of writing code, I can now talk to it. And that is really kind of where we get this idea that we have progressed into Skynet territory, right? Now we could just talk to machines and they can respond back to us as if they are us, but they're not. And this is why I say it's a souped up ad lib, because what the machine is doing, it is predicting how to respond to you based upon all of the information that it's been trained on. But does it understand what you're saying? It knows the words that go together because it's been trained on that, but does it really understand what a cat is, right? It can recognize it, but does it understand what a cat is as opposed to a dog? It can
Is that
know
like the
that the
next?
cat, well, that's what artificial general intelligence is, AGI. Like that's the next step, right? So if we thought about traditional machine learning, where we're just doing models that do prediction, to AI, where models are machines are making decisions contextually. So they're bringing in data from the current experience that they're having, and they're making decisions based upon that, not having been trained on it. To generative AI, well, now they're generating new content, right? Like they're generating new images, new content after being trained, stuff that has never been seen before, right? And then the next phase is they're doing all those things without us.
And is it without us, or like I guess where are we?
Well,
Like how
without
might it
us having
impact?
to teach them how to do it, right? Like, so it's artificial general intelligence is the achievement and the pinnacle. It's the singularity, right? It's
Yeah,
the point where the machine can make its own decisions without having to depend upon our biases and leeways, right?
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
now, I there are some people who think we're right around the corner from that, and I just have to say, like, when they had the when the 12 guys got together at Dartmouth in 1958, and they were going to create artificial intelligence, they said it was going to happen in 20 years. Well, obviously that was not that didn't happen, but we've had such rapid progress now. Like traditional ML used to be the only ML, right? 2 years ago, right? Just 18 months ago. Now look where we are. So again, the law of averages, right, on technology. Um, will we achieve AGI soon? Who knows? Like, I'm not. There are colleagues who work across the pond who think we're already there. I'm gonna say we're not, but who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
So, so Veta, in your day to day, just as you're sitting down with the different teams, obviously with kind of having been at IDEO and probably just kind of, I guess, sitting down with teams and talking through how to approach design, human centric principles of whether you're incorporating AI into your product or you're building even just interfaces for AI. Just curious on some of the maybe the kind of the universal truths that you see now that may be emerging or fundamentally different than maybe 4 years ago, and how do you
Yeah,
prioritize some of those values and needs that people have today, which are different, and it's radically evolving, as you said.
yeah. I mean, obviously, one of the biggest differences in design today than 4 or 5 years ago is data is a stakeholder, right? Data is not something that is removed from our design process, but it's really a stakeholder in our research and design and engineering process. There is no machine learning AI without data, right? And so it becomes a very important component of how we do product design. Whereas before, like even 5 years ago, data was something that happened. We collected and it was created in our interactions, but it wasn't so much like we actually needed it to create a product. You can't create an AI product without data. So, with that means the understanding of the data as a design tool, which means as a designer, I could probably have a long career, make a lot of money being graphically oriented, visually oriented, putting together workflows, those kinds of things. But increasingly, I, the successful designers, I believe in what I call design in an automated age, will be systems thinkers, service
Mhm.
designers, people who are looking at ecosystems and not like individual end devices, multimodal, right? Like the design is widening to include a
Right.
lot of things, and that includes data. So now you can't just look at the customer journey, right? Now you have to mark all those places where data is created, transferred, transformed, because those are opportunities for product design. Whereas before, you could just say, oh, they pick up a phone and they book a cruise and they get the cruise, email and all this kind of stuff. But now all of those are data points that can be turned into intelligent products. And so as a
Yeah.
designer, you have to think as much about, and I always say, all people create data and all data is created by people. So if your human centered focus is on the people, you have to look at the data that they create as part of their persona, right? As part of their profile, as part of who they are. And so there's the Sarah, where we see her and her face and her lovely smile and all that. And then there's the data Sarah, right? Where she's creating data every time she gets in her car, every time she writes a check, every time she turns on Netflix, every time she does something, right? Her behavior creates other opportunities for customizing products for her.
I mean, as you're talking, it's just kind of crystallizing as like a full stack designer. Um,
Yeah, right,
that's in
right.
like because it's existed forever within. I won't say forever. It's existed within the engineering development side, and then you had just designers. Um, but I think the really good ones are the ones that are incorporating data research, usability experiences, like all the different dimensions around like what design actually means, to
Yeah.
create this kind of full stack designer.
Yeah, and I call it design as a verb, right? Design with a capital D, right? Most of the industry has seen design with a small d and as a noun. So it's a visually graphic outcome, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. So we have design systems, we have UIs, we have all that stuff like front end, CSS, HTML, all of that is built on our transference from print, right? Like, or our transference from industrial design into digital design. Now we're into the holistic part of design where you can't just look at how the person interfaces with the device. The experience design is all about the ecosystem that the person engages with, not just device, but it's device to device and machine to machine. My relationship with machines through conduits like my phone rather than just the interface on my phone. Like my phone, I would predict your phone will go from apps to agents like that, right? So right now we have all these apps. Now you're going to have intelligent little tiny machines on your phone helping to customize your experience as you walk past your favorite Nike store, right? Putting together whole outfits for you right then and there, and then showing you all the places where you can go get that. And then directing your route in your car so that you go to all the right places at all the right times to put that outfit together. Like those are little tiny agents that can help you do that. That's what generative AI can do.
It's exciting. I mean, we're launching something called vTeam, which is a series of agents, but similar to you're describing, these are all these kind of micro assistants that can help you,
Yep.
uh, do
And
all different kinds
and
of
the
things.
cool thing about us is that they're SME micro assistants,
Right.
right? Like they have a particular understanding of a particular subject matter that is vast, right? But doesn't have to spread across any other subject matter, right? So you have deep expertise that can aid you. You can have your own accountant assistant, right? And an accountant assistant that only deals with, purple frogs, whatever. I don't know. The logistics
Right.
of purple frogs. Very small, it's like long
Pretty niche.
tail. Yeah, pretty niche, but like you could feel confident that you know everything about purple frogs, right?
Yeah.
Um, so it's like the internet specified instead
Yeah.
of it used like the internet was the Library of Congress, right? So you kind of like went in, put in a word, got some results, and maybe they were kind of what you wanted, and then you kind of refined it, and you kept refining it around. Now you just go, hey, dude, Charlie, I want to know everything about purple frog logistics. And Charlie is the expert on purple frog logistics because that's all he's going to retrieve for you. Or she's going to, or I'm not going to anthropomorphize, but that's all that agent is there for.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
all the agent exists for. And then it goes away.
I mean, what we're seeing is obviously, I mean, just even walking through the expo floor, it's generative AI everywhere, but it's always connected to data. What we're seeing a lot of energy around is that what if these are actually connected to people, and that the knowledge, the data set keeps on getting better and better and better because it's a constant flow of new knowledge and information that's kind of spoken from you, right? So
Yeah.
you could have written an article, you could scrape the web and kind of find all the data to support or build out the SME agent. But then how does it get updated with
Yeah.
it? Because obviously our understanding of things evolves over time, and for what we're doing is, well, what if it's not just a human in the loop? What if the human was the loop? And just around building a better microphone, a better signal, a better prompts out to the human to say, Ovetta, what do you think about this concept today? And how may have that changed over the last 30 days? Because
Yeah.
you're collecting new
And you
knowledge.
Yeah, and I think you hit on this is a key point that I teach my students. And anytime I do a workshop, I have this workshop called Designing the Automated Future. So basically, I kind of hone in on what design leadership looks like in an automated future, what design teams will look like in an automated future, excuse me, and what the practice of research and design. I put those together. But what that means for the practice of our craft. And one of the things that it means for we have been dialed in to the user device dynamic that's um stoic, right? Does not change. So
Right.
I program my phone to act like this, right? Ring, whatever the capability is, and that phone will keep doing that for the rest of its life until I program it to do something else. What generative AI says, and it ushers into what I call the human machine relationship, not just the user device um, uh, dynamic. Because if you have an intelligent product that you buy today and it is collecting your customized data, right? In 6 months, that's a different product.
Mm-hmm.
So think about it. You buy a car that's intelligent. It collects data on everything you do in the car, of course. So it knows when you're going to work. It knows what time you go to work. It knows if you stop at Dunkin' Donuts, right? Like it knows these because it knows its data points and it's translating that into your words. And then maybe 30 days into that, relationship, we could design the car to go, hey, do you want to just program in, this is the way we're going to stop at Dunkin' Donuts
Right.
at 7:30 every morning. And
Yeah, I'm
then
going to
we
order
can
your
call
coffee
ahead.
before you get there.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'll order your coffee before you get there. And then you just go to the drive-thru, pick it up, and it's paid, through your Apple Pay or whatever. Like, that's the kind of experiences we can design. And that human design relationship, though, doesn't start right away, right? Like, because
Right.
it has to learn about you. So now
Yeah.
the way we design our engagement with machines are on a spectrum of familiarity and trust, right? Instead of, hey, this is the interface, you go figure it out. I was speaking to a group, Black designers, at the Black Designers UX conference in Dallas. And I said, what if you design a UI, right? That by the time it gets shipped to the customer, it's already changed because they decided to use their own generative AI to move that button that you put on the left to the right.
Mm-hmm.
So then what does that mean for you as a designer? If you as a designer worried about pixels, what now do you really have to worry about? More
Relationships.
so, yes, less than pixels. You got to worry about feedback loops. You got to worry
Mm-hmm.
about listening posts. How do you design ways for products to listen to their users and change and transform? Right. So when I was at IDEO, I was a lead design researcher working on autonomous vehicles for Ford. Right. And one of the things that we had in our design principles is design for the transition states, design for transitions, not end states. So this is illustrative of what I'm talking about here. Whereas prior to an automated age, we were designing for end states, right? I'm going to end by downloading this Cowboy Carter, right? And putting in this on my playlist. But now it's like I have an intelligent agent that can do that for me. So what's the transition there that I need to tell the agent how to do that and when I want it and all that kind of stuff? That's the design now, right? Not the activity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we're thinking about design in an automated age, we have to think about the relationship and experience design that has to come in those little nuances of conversation and engagement that humans are going to have with their machines, where the machine can understand contextually that things need to change.
How far away from like kind of decoupling that information are we from, decoupling from products? Because it almost, those feel like brand
Yeah,
agnostic experiences that
it
travel with
is.
me. So I could have those experiences and I get my new Ford and it's already there and
Yeah.
it's already connected to my phone and it's connected to the rest of my world.
And that's such a great point because, you know, brand loyalty is going to mean a whole different thing, right? Because it, that scenario I talked about where you're walking past something and your phone recognizes that that's the Nike shoes you like. Um, but the blue jean jacket that goes with that is a store you've never seen before,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So it's going to suggest that to you, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to buy it there, right? So
Right.
retailers are going to have to think about less about brand and more about how does this fit with this customer, right? I'm a coach nerd. Like I love Coach. My mom brought me a Coach when I was 17. I will always buy Coaches, right? But recently I was like, I need a bag that I can fit everything in. And then like these ads for Louis Vuitton, everything bag came up. And I was like, Louis Vuitton, I'll never buy that, right? But it's like, that's the bag that I was looking for, you know? So like the knowledge that I'm going to be able to get about what's out there is totally going to change, right? Because I'm not only going to be controlling that that exchange with me and my search bar, right? Now there's going to be an
Yeah.
agent that could go everywhere, all the stores. Like it's kind of like Spotify, right? Where other online music places would just give you playlists of things that you put there. And then Spotify said, all right, you kind of like this genre of Dolly Parton. Maybe you're going to like this new artist from Africa who's doing country that you've never heard of before. But
Right.
I recognize the pattern of that music, and I'm just going to pop that in your playlist. Like,
Right.
think
Yeah.
about that across all kinds of things.
So internally, just like how we're building out our platform, was that you have like Ovetta's account, like your account, you're getting all these prompts, you're sharing more about yourself. You know, we want you to have a relationship with like us, but then I want to take, you know, similar to like single sign on, you know, log in with your Google account. I want to log in with my Vurvey account into a brand's website and then have it personalized to me, you know,
Yeah,
bring,
right.
you know, the future of single sign on is like I plug into this experience. It now knows that I have a shellfish allergy. It knows that I, you know, all these things. Here's what I tend to order. Here's Sarah makes fun of me because I listen to sad music, so it kind of it brings the mood down. Uh,
Yeah,
but like, I think with anybody, with a human, you want to be known, and you know,
yeah,
whenever you go to those
yeah.
networking events, it doesn't matter who it is. It's the first person that says hi to you, where you're immediately like, it's going to be okay, you know. And I think it's just scaling out that type of feeling or emotion or behavior. I think is kind of like the linchpin of the whole experience is that like trust and relationship.
Yeah, it's totally. And like, I wrote this piece called Design Principles for a New AI World. And I was inspired by George I, who wrote about redefining good design. And he took Dieter Ram's principle of good design and kind of rewrote
Mm-hmm.
them. And I rewrote them as well. And one of the things I said about good design is in an automated age, good design will promote healthy relationships. That means it would allow you to relate to things that you may not know about, but provide you a wider berth of how to cook your, you know, make your family meals and all of that on a customized when you're ready for a contextual way, right? Not in the Library of Congress way, right? And I also said that good design makes companies like makes companies understand me and create products that serve me. So if you're not a brand that's using ML and AI to understand your customers better, you are missing out because what's going to happen is going to be the iPhone effect, right? Remember when iPhones first came out and people loved their interface and their UI and they created affordance. And if you bought a phone that wasn't an iPhone, sorry BlackBerry, like you expected all the other phones to act like that,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Like you expected people to pop in you expected to pop in any headphone and it would act like iPods. You expected to have the smooth experience that you have with a Mac, with any other computer, right? So it creates new affordances. This is what ML and AI pioneers are going to create, new affordances about what brands can actually provide for me. And in an automated future, good design will understand me in a way
Yeah.
that you could never understand. Talk about universal design, right? Like we say we do research and we have user personas and all this kind of stuff, but really, like when you're designing a product for 1 billion people, you're just like, like throw that in the dark. Like I think that's gonna work, whatever.
Yeah.
Now you literally can do all 1 billion people, right? Like
Yeah.
you could
That's what
you
we're.
can
Yeah.
create these agents that takes the foundation of a phone and turns it into Sarah's phone, and Sarah's phone is going to look infinitely different than Chad's.
So how do we talk about it? So as a practitioner, I'm a design researcher. I practiced human-centered design, design thinking, and at IDEO, you guys were reframing it as human-centered machine learning. What do we call this new kind of design world? Like, what would you call it? And kind of
Well,
what are we stepping into?
I call it designing an automated future, and the reason why I say that is because it is taking designers and I think engineers too a long time to shift their paradigms from code-based software design to behavioral product design. And it's a quote that both now Tim Brown and I were at 99U when we were talking about this, and I say he said it, but I think I really said it. But really, it was like before this era, in an automated era, we used to have to worry about how software was built, right? How products were built. Is it safe? Is it this? Is it that? Does it work like this way? Blah, blah. Now we have to worry about how they behave. And that is the different paradigm here. We go from stoic, and I have a whole series on the difference between interaction design and AI design. We go from stoic, code base, will act in one modal way to multimodal, dynamic, unpredictable at some points, a behavior of products, right? And that's the big difference. So if you're thinking about it as in terms of a researcher, if you're researching a digital interaction or interaction design piece, then yeah, you can kind of make some hypothesis about how people are going to engage with a product. But if you have a dynamic product that changes contextually over time, like you're going to have to simulate that environment because you're never going to be able to know really how people are going to react to that until you put them in that environment. And so as a researcher, we use simulations a lot when we were creating intelligence products because we couldn't really ask people, what color Stargate do you want? Like if we tried to tell them all the capabilities that this car, like when we were working on the car for Ford, we created superhero cards. And we were like, your car can see through rock, right? Like your car can take a nap, right? Like these are all like we made them superhero capabilities, but they were really technology. But you can't ask people, when should my car take a nap, right? Like, or when should my car switch agency to me and stop functioning, whatever. So we had to find different ways to get at those capabilities. And one of them was through games, right? So we're like, your car can literally take a nap. What would be the best time for your car to just stand down? And one user were like, yeah, when we're on the scenic route, because I like to drive. I like to feel driving. So if we're off-roading, I don't want my car in charge. Great, right? Mm-hmm. But I can't go to him and say, when's the best time for your car to be completely autonomous? You know, whatever. I guess I could, but that would have been a different conversation, right? Yeah. So we have to get creative about how we talk about these capabilities and technologies because most people can't comprehend that their car can take a nap.
Do you see just with some of the terms you're throwing out, just a lot of the humanization of machines with if we're talking about a car, you have to go and give it an oil change, which isn't like a human thing, but taking a nap is, right? Or getting a health check, or taking your temperature, or whatever the things are. It's like, are we starting to adopt a little bit more of the human experience? And then bring those connection points over into objects to, hey, I want you in silent mode.
I think one of the things that everybody knows me says is don't anthropomorphize more than you need to, right? Because people are already scared of these technologies. And so one of my principles that I talk to my team about is like, we need to design to the limitations of ML and AI, not its capabilities. So the part about the car taking a nap was about its capability, the ability of the car to transfer its agency to you. Right now, it can't do that, right? No matter what Tesla says. But in the future, it'll be able to make that decision, right? And so because that capability is possible, but we don't want to get into the technical parts of that, we called it taking a nap, right? And it made sense to the user. But like we didn't say Charlie took the nap, right? Like we didn't give it a name and everything. That's up to you, like if you want to do it. But we're gonna do it anyway. How many people name their bikes these days, right? Like how many people
Yeah.
I name my car? My car is named Sheila. I'm on my fifth Sheila, but it's Sheila. We're gonna do that. So as designers and researchers, we don't have to push our users into doing that. They're gonna anthropomorphize machines. We've been doing it forever, right? What I caution against is taking that anthropomorphizing and trying to make people believe that machines are beyond their limitations, right? That's what you don't want to do. You don't want to say things like machines understand us. They recognize patterns. Machines are sentient. Okay, we talked about this.
Mhm.
Sentient means to feel, not to think. There's a difference there, right? So, sure, they can make decisions, right? They can take in logic and input variables, reach back into their memory. Shout out to Daniel Kahneman, right? First
Hmm.
and second, right? They can do that, right? They have long term and short term memory. We program them that way, and then they make decisions contextually, just like we do, right? But do they feel those memories? No, right? Like there's no color
Not
to
yet.
them. Like it's not like blue, not yet, right? Skynet, not yet. So when we talk about anthropomorphizing, we want to keep it in the context and the framework of the scenario and make sure we're not over indexing on the machine's capabilities beyond what it actually is doing.
I feel like we could talk for another like 2 hours, but I think we're at time.
And I really appreciate this opportunity to talk to you guys. It's always great to talk to customers who are trying to adapt this technology. You guys are the experts and the heroes here. And the more that you can share with other folks, the more excited and inspired I think people will be.
Thank you so much.
I love this. Thanks so much, Ovetta.
Well, Ovetta is awesome. That was
She
a really
is.
great interview with her.
Like we could have gone into hour two.
Oh yeah, yeah. She's got a lot to say. I think that and I think it's really cool too because she's very technical, but I think that she brings the human behavior, her experience as a kind of working at IDEO and kind of as a researcher and spending a lot of time around human beings and bringing that sensibility to thinking about what's next in AI and machine learning, which I think is really unique, and I think that's
Yeah,
it's necessary. You
absolutely.
and I believe that's necessary,
It is.
definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. I cannot wait to collaborate with her more. What were your takeaways?
I mean, my takeaways were I appreciate that she is thinking about humans, and I think that that is it's and as you can say from your time in at Google Next, that's not necessarily kind of what we're hearing. We're hearing a lot about like kind of synthetic
Yeah.
people and data and kind of scraping kind of what's out there to be able to create sensibility around humans versus actually thinking about what are humans believing and valuing and experiencing and using that to then synthesize that information into kind of what's next. So I just think the work that she's doing is really important
Yeah.
and making sure that human behavior and kind of human-centered thinking is part of what we're developing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I love, if you kind of like take a lot of the themes that we talked about and then put it into even just, job descriptions or titles of things. I mean, I think the rise of the full stack designer who's doing research and insights and like, the whole thing,
Hmm.
same with like any other role. It's just like adding full stack to that role, because now you're going to have to have all of these different abilities or capabilities to do the job,
Hmm.
which seems maybe daunting but also exciting, because you don't necessarily have to do just this one little tiny part. You can be
Yeah.
a part of the whole problem solving process,
Hmm.
which I think is
For
really
our
exciting.
yeah, for our listeners, we full stack was definitely mentioned in the conversation. Can you explain just what that is, just so people? It is something that gets tossed around when people are in tech, and I think it would just be important to kind of unpack that a little bit.
Yeah, so full stack refers to the different kinds of capabilities or parts of parts of a project that you're working on. So usually, if you're in design or if you're in development, you might be a front end designer who's working on the interface and uh, the user experience. You're doing like journey mapping and wireframing and kind of the front end design, and you might do all those designs inside of like Figma or some tools like that. If you're a back end developer, you're working on the tech stack. So it's all of the different cloud services. You're writing your Python, like all different kinds of languages you need to know, and then you connect the front end and the back end together. So you create kind of like a full stack
Mm-hmm.
experience. You have engineers and developers that are full stack developers who can do both the front and back end. For designers, it was primarily focused on front end or experience design, or it's kind of described in different ways. And same for research. You're sometimes facilitating things, you're sometimes synthesizing things, but I'd say very rarely are you like executing innovation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a really interesting place to be, is that you can go wide but also deep,
Yep.
as like a full stack. Insert the job title right there, but
Mm-hmm.
you can do all of the things. You can impact the front end of the human experience, but you can also impact what's happening back of house.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think of like a restaurant,
Yep.
you don't just live in the front, like out kind of with people. You don't just live in the kitchen. You
Mm-hmm.
can navigate both systems
Mm-hmm.
in order to create a really cool experience.
Yeah. I think that's really cool too, because what happens, through the product development process in a lot of ways is like the communication breaks down, there's a lot of really rich learnings from people, and then that gets then handed off to someone that's creating design, and then it gets handed off to someone that's thinking about the technical specs, and then goes through the manufacturing. So this is a really cool way to think about, how does that, the values that are uncovered at the beginning, making sure that they are completely connected to the end product or
Yeah,
experience,
yeah.
in ways that it just gets broken down. I mean, there's an essence of it, of course, and I think really great teams that have that fantastic communication they can translate that, but that doesn't always happen. It gets
No,
lost.
no, and I'd also say that that's probably a reason why people leave jobs. Is that you're working on something that's like meaningful for you,
Mm-hmm.
you hand it over, and then no one listens to what the insights were, and
Yeah.
so it's extremely frustrating. And I think with this, it's just the opportunity is to have that red thread go through the whole experience, that you're part of a team
Mm-hmm.
that's working across functions. I don't know. I think it's going to change the way we work. I think it's going to change the way we organize team members around the work.
Mm-hmm.
A way we can include the kind of consumers in that experience, as opposed to just like bookending it,
Mm-hmm.
which has always felt weird. Um,
Yeah. But I think we can include more people that don't necessarily consider themselves creative in the process as well.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone from like HR or finance or something that have a sense of kind of, how they can create a solution, but have never had the tools before to participate in that conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, this is exciting, but that's going to do it for this episode of AI Powered by People. The show is produced by Steve Berkowitz and brought to you by Vurvey. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next Tuesday.